Arma Reforger is not Arma 4. Bohemia Interactive has made that abundantly clear during the slightly confusing rollout of the new entry in the storied military simulation series, which hit early access on Steam last week. Instead, it's meant to be a testbed for features and design choices that may or may not be integrated in a future numbered franchise entry. In other words, Reforger is unfinished in every sense of the word. Textures flicker in and out of reality, flagrant bugs litter the battlefield, and nearly every match ends in a sudden, anticlimactic disconnect from the server. In its current state, Bohemia's latest is a deeply frustrating experience. And yet, when everything comes together, Reforger is still totally capable of mustering that steely, one-of-a-kind Arma immersion. Arma 3, the previous game in the series that launched almost a decade ago, is one of the most expansive video games ever made. The spirited Arma community has been blessed with countless expansions and a thriving mod scene, which has given rise to other PC classics like DayZ and PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. Reforger, on the other hand, effectively shipped with two modes: a capture and hold warfront on a grand scale, and a Game Master variant that allows one player to edit the action in real time like a D&D Dungeon Keeper. Both of these take place on the same map, an impressively gigantic fictional Atlantic island called Everon, which originally appeared in Bohemia's Operation Flashpoint all the way back in 2001. And just like Flashpoint, Reforger takes place in 1989 with a fairly boilerplate US versus Soviet gestalt. Anyone coming to Reforger expecting the barest set of first-person shooter features, like say any semblance of a single-player mode, will be sorely disappointed. Instead, it functions like an alpha test unloaded for the most dedicated members of the Arma community. The problem is, alpha tests don't usually cost $29.99, which is what Reforger is retailing for right now. There are certainly hardcore players out there who will relish the chance to nurture the next chapter of Arma from its earliest, primordial stages, but more casual fans would probably be better off exploring Arma 3. Reforger matches tend to go one of two different ways. Sometimes you're dropped in the middle of a map, on a server that appears to have no other human souls occupying it. The environment is gorgeous. Bohemia has imported all of its work to the new Enfusion Engine, which powers a much more vibrant environment compared to the relatively staid Arma 3. It doesn't pack the same visual punch as something like Battlefield 2042, but it's a huge step up for this series. Taking all that in, you fumble around in the wildlands, ambling between military encampments to siege townships, not seeing a single enemy soldier until your PC mercifully sunders its connection. If you're not already plugged into a dedicated group of Arma-attuned friends, then this will likely define a lot of your early travels with Reforger. Outside of that, and a basic tutorial, Bohemia hasn't provided nearly enough scaffolding to onboard amateurs to its universe, which seems especially short-sighted given how Reforger is the first game in the series to make its way to consoles. If this is to be Arma's attempt to court a mainstream shooter player audience, then it makes a horrible first impression. But then there are other matches where you'll spawn in the midst of a dedicated group of military sim lifers, and in these moments, Reforger sings. Appreciating Arma requires a small bit of role-playing faculty, and once you've integrated yourself with a group of nice, capable troops and liberated a slew of outposts from NATO oppressors, the appeal becomes much clearer. Arma's simulation style is so much more slow-paced than its typical FPS brethren, and Reforger keeps all of its immersive tendrils that have defined the series in the past. There's no minimap or radar. Navigation must be orchestrated with a compass, and communication with distant battalions can only be achieved with radio chatter that gets increasingly fuzzy the further you are away. These really helped establish the rhythms of Everon, and Reforger also allows you to outfit the various checkpoints around the island with sandbag barriers, vehicle depots, and armories, which lets the battle grow and evolve over time. Contrasted with the hypersonic murder arenas of the average Call of Duty map, a round of Reforger feels like a far more rewarding, long attritional campaign. These flourishes are simultaneously brilliant and maddening, and they're best enjoyed with a group who are all on the same page. You might find yourself emotionally connected with your avatar's life in a way that's rare in multiplayer games. Perhaps you and your partner will crawl through the underbrush together towards an enemy's headquarters, unsure if any resistance was waiting on the other side, only to have a flurry of machine gun shells interrupt the silence and plunge all of your careful planning into chaos. We've all been shot at literally millions of times over the course of our video game careers, but Arma still has a way of evoking the pure, nauseating dread of warfighting. Reforger makes you feel the weight of the assault rifle in your hands, and when it functions correctly, it's indispensable. That said, Arma is not always a painful, dramatic dirge. In fact, this game can be quite funny sometimes. You'll be in plenty of tipped-over jeeps because your driver took a hairpin turn a little too harshly. Everyone in the voice comm screaming as the party tries to put it back on its wheels with the help of a hand grenade, like in Halo. There is a certain comic poetry whenever you're iced out by a random headshot from the wild blue yonder, if only because it reminds you that for all of your martial bravado, we are extremely mortal. Reforger is most enjoyable when everyone on the island is willing to laugh after a fight goes bad. It's a game to be experienced rather than dominated. Of course, even your best sessions with Reforger will usually end with a server failure. There's a meme going around the Arma subreddit about how almost none of the community have played a match to completion. It takes a long time to fully rout the rival faction, and with the stability being so fraught, you're much more likely to watch the infrastructure go kaput than finish off a crusade. That makes Reforger a difficult game to recommend right now. Bohemia is clearly still working out the kinks with the Enfusion Engine, and customers are not usually keen on paying to be unpaid game testers. And that's effectively what you'd be, because glitches are rampant in Reforger. There's a chance you might load into a match with your character's finger perpetually pointing forward as if the enemy was truly everywhere. To some degree, issues like this are par for the course for any game in its earlier stages, and Bohemia has been transparent about it, but it should be made very clear that this is what you're buying into. Arma Reforger is a promising evolution of the Arma formula, and it and the eventual Arma 4 have a chance to be special. On a massive island map powered by a gorgeous engine, you'll have the chance to join up with a team of dedicated soldiers and work through all sorts of wondrous fiddly military simulation quirks. If you enjoy navigating to a rendezvous point with nothing more than a compass and a paper map as rifle fire peppers the air, Reforger will totally satiate that fantasy. However, with a relatively tiny set of features and a boatload of game-breaking bugs that end nearly every session prematurely, Reforger is very much still a work in progress. For anyone who isn't inclined to be on the absolute cutting edge of Arma's future, there is another military sim on the market that is a lot less buggy, has a wealth of features, and a decade's worth of fan support. It's called Arma 3, and it also costs $29.99. For more, check out our reviews of Sniper Elite 5 or Crossfire X's disastrous multiplayer mode. And for everything else, stick with IGN.